Summer is a-coming, cross the bridge and up the lane, to join the 20,000 come the sun or come the rain. To mark the turning of the year, we'll all be here again, celebrating summer by the Cherwell.
Make haste to the wedding, your friends and your neighbours, the lovers of this can no longer delay. Forget all your troubles, your cares and your labours, and let every heart fill with gratitude today. You votaries all attend to my call, come revel in places that never can cloy. Come, sing, roar, felicity with love and innocence ever enjoy.
You know those old village tales you hear? Once a year a strange event takes place. Well, here in Cropredy, it's absolutely true, it does, because this is the home of the 4th Fairport Convention annual reunion. Why do you put all the hours and days and probably a whole year of work into organising this little garden party?
I often wonder that myself.
Welcome to Cropredy 2016, ladies and gentlemen.
I grew up in a period when everybody loved the idea of boys with guitars forming bands, pulling lots of chicks and having a wild and wrecky time, you know, out on the road in a van. So most people at school in the mid-60s would be in a band, you know. They all knew 4 chords. And the wise ones went through that period and grew out of it. I didn't.
I was invited in December to join them 69. That's December 1969. And I joined in January, and I've been there ever since. Next year is my 50th year, and they promised me a watch. I was hoping for a gold watch, but apparently it's a chocolate watch.
You didn't get any time off for good behaviour or anything like that?
None whatsoever. They did try and fire me once in America when I was somewhat over-refreshed for about 3 months. But then they realised that there was still a spare seat in the van, so I was invited back.
We just started like millions of other bands all over the world. But as it was, we somehow or other dodged all the pitfalls and we got through, and I can't believe really that, you know, over 50 years later, I'm still not considering looking for a proper job.
My first outing was in '97. I joined December '96 on my it was on my 40th birthday.
Wow.
My entry really to things Fairport is through Dave Pegg, the bass player, because Peggy played on my album in, I guess it was over 40 years ago. And when the band split up, I knew the members of the band individually and collectively. And I sort of remember it as they split up, and then they decided they'd have a reunion gig.
Well, we lived for about 6 months in this disused pub in Little Haddam in Hertfordshire, and then we moved to Cropredy because Dave Swarbrick lived in Cropredy, and our then manager at the time, a chap called Philip Sterling Wall, lived just over the road in Williamscott, and he found a house for us, a little cottage in Chapel Row, which we bought for 7,000 quid, my ex-wife Christine and myself, and we moved with our 2 kids, Matthew and Stephanie. They grew up the village. We had a good relationship with the village because we'd got young kids who went to Cropredy school, you know, so you get to meet all the parents. I knew most of the families in Cropredy from our kids being at school, and the 2 pubs were great then. It was a different kind of time in England, you know.
The village was a very different place, very, very agricultural. You know, in the evenings the guys would come off the fields and they'd all be in the pubs, sort of 6 o'clock in the evening, a couple of pints before they went home for supper. Now, of course, very different. You know, most of the agriculture's sort of gone, but The village, from a geographical point of view, from a physical point of view, hasn't changed that much. They've built considerable amount of add-ons over the years, most of which have been tastefully done, and I don't think after a couple of years you settle into it. But it was a magical place to grow up.
It's interesting when you meet somebody for the first time and you say you live in Cropredy, you get a response which is either, oh yeah, you have a big festival there, or you get, oh, wasn't there a Civil War battle there? So it's clearly known for that quite widely, as well as for the Fairport Festival.
We did a little concert. They said, could you play in Cropredy Village Hall? We said we could. We were rehearsing there, but it only holds about 100 people. We said, if you want to raise some money, let's get a field somewhere and we'll organise a one-off concert, which we did, not in Cropredy itself, but at a place called Preston Capes on the way to Daventry. And we just had a one-day event, and it was a great success.
It was fairly earth-shattering because for kids of our age, and I mean, in '76 where they held the first, well, I guess the first festival, we would have been 14, 15 years old, and it was incredible to see that amount of people in one place. It was quite staggering. This was obviously just before we all sort of got that little bit older and we were able to go to like really big festivals, but we'd never seen anything like it.
And then for 3 years later, Mrs. Crossman, who sadly passed away about 10 years ago, has a big estate just over in Williamscott. And she let us use her front lawn, and we played at the village fete, again to raise money for the village. And that grew from, 600 people the first year to 1,800 by year 3.
Anne Crossman at Prescott Manor was a very community-minded lady, and was very happy for her property to be used.
I remember us dancing. There was one particular tune, the Hens March.
And then we realised that we'd have to move. So we started renting fields, and we were splitting up. So in '79 we had a farewell concert here, and then from then on we had a reunion concert every year.
In 1979, Swarbrick had got a bad hearing problem. It was very uncomfortable for him to play electric music, and his specialist said if he carried on he'd eventually go deaf. So that was the main reason that we split, but also we'd had a pretty good run then. I mean, the group had been together for about 13 years, and we weren't selling many records, and we were working more or less non-stop doing gigs in order to survive, and it wasn't really going anywhere. It was down to the last lineup, really, and I think it was time for a change for everybody. So we decided that we would split up, but we'd get together every summer.
And for us at that peak time, it was just amazing. And then, of course, it made us look at Fairport Convention and look at their pedigree. Obviously captivated by the music because it was absolutely superb. And then, of course, the relationship over the years has continued as we've gone on and on. It's just become that. It's just become absolutely integral to everything about Cropredy. And it's would I have foreseen it back then? No chance. Would have thought so. There's these sort of little festivals crop up everywhere, but for that one to take it to where it's gone now is quite incredible, really.
Well, it all came together, as I'm sure you probably know. It's been 40 years. I was a friend of Peggy's early on, scruffy mechanic, and he wanted one generator for what later turned out to be a small fete, really. And I turned up and did that. And as far as that goes, the rest is history. We've now expanded into what you see today of 39 generators, 40 lighting towers, numerous fantastic crew. Doesn't work without the boys and girls. There's no I in team unless you're like me in Welsh or dyslexic.
Well, for a start off, it was a 2-day festival. And it's grown, really. I mean, it was much more of not totally folky, but it was more like a folk festival. This was long before we had giant acts headlining like Status Quo.
It had found a slot where it was organised by musicians rather than promoters. So there was more feeling coming from the band, you know, and always felt like a big family reunion. And the band Fairport didn't exist at the time, so they only met here in August. So people were very keen to come and see them. I mean, they reformed later when they started winter tours, but they were all in different projects, different bands, so this was their meeting place.
There's only 1 year when we moved from Cropredy, and that was 1981 when we went to Broughton Castle, because the guy that owned Peewit Farm, which is a field by the canal that's used as a campsite now, that was where we had the first few festivals there, and he died intestate, and he couldn't leave the permission for us to rent his land. We were kind of scuppered, so we had to find somewhere. So we went to Broughton Castle, the stately home, in 1981, ostensibly to raise money for a charity, the two local, the Lions and another Banbury charity, who could get us permission to use the castle.
Hard was my fate. I was brought up in a terrible state. Bad company did me entice. I left off work and took bad advice, which makes me now to lament and say, pity the fate of your fellows all a willow day.
I think it was lovely that Peggy and Swarb lived in the village itself during the formative years of the festival, Peggy and his wife Christine, and so there was that real bond, you know, because Peggy's very friendly, very sociable personality, and he would in those years, I remember him, he knew everybody in the village, he knew all the people in the community in a really great way, and that's so important for establishing anything like this to happen in a particular spot, particularly so close to a village, because it affects the area, and obviously as the years have gone on, it's affected the area more and more. But so it's really great that everything stemmed from that bond, that real friendliness.
The festival, which we just call Fairport as villagers, because that's who come, is a highlight of the year for the village.
The impact on the village and the synergy between the festival and the village has grown over the years. And as I say, it is integral, very much integral, and there's very, very little animosity towards the event, aside from the usual sort of parking violations and, you know, maybe occasional noise, but people love it. People in the village absolutely love the festival, they embrace it. Obviously, things that people have looked upon as opportunities over the years, to make a bit of money maybe. So, for example, you have things like the school and the village hall, etc. They will do breakfasts and they will do various, you know, showers, etc. The sports club. These sorts of things have actually become ingrained in the tradition of the festival.
We're all very aware that it is a fundraising opportunity when all the people come to the village.
I think there's a great relationship between the village and Fairport, and Fairport has been very good to all voluntary organisations in the village. We have done very well out of it. For many years, without Fairport, we would not have survived. When we first started doing it in 1991, I think we made £300. We make a lot more than that, probably nearer £5,000 to £6,000 now. Without that income, we would not have survived. And I think the same applies to quite a few of the organisations in the village.
It's also, you know, you have the people who come to the festival year in, year out, who on whatever day it is, or Friday or Saturday, whatever day, because they always have a day, they will go to the village hall for breakfast, and the Saturday they do the sports club, or, you know, or the school. Everybody's creatures of habit, and they do things. They do these things, you know, they'll go to one pub on one evening and the other pub on the other evening. And they do the same every year, year in, year out. So those breakfasts, etc., they generate much needed cash for the village hall, for the school, for the chapel do them as well. But they've become part of the festival goers' itineraries, which is really, really good. And of course, obviously, there's a bump economically, obviously, for both pubs. for the village shop, all of which, you know, have a nice healthy spike in there. You know, particularly, you know, when things are particularly difficult, particularly for pubs at the moment in this country. Yeah, much needed spike in revenue, and it's great.
The majority of the people in the village enjoy the festival and take part. A few don't enjoy it, and they might go away. They may even let out their house and make money that way. But the people who are here, a lot actually go to the field to the music. So, and we benefit. Any organisation who wants to benefit from it can do.
And it's lovely that on the Cropredy village sign in the village is a fiddle. You know, it's become part, and we have the Cropredy bell in the church tower with Fairport's Cropredy Convention, you know, those words, Fairport Festival bell, the Fairport Festival bell.
I took over the fundraising to do a restoration of our bells, because every 100 years or so you need to turn the bells because they get thinner with being hit. And it turned up that that was the time to do it. And in 1913, when they had done the previous restoration, they put in a bell frame that would take 8 bells, but we only had 6. So that was when we set about to raise funds to restore the bells, turn them, new bearings and new bells. Things happen quite quickly. You know, suddenly you need to do your bells, you need to raise funds. Oh, Fairport's coming up, what shall we do? And we offered Fairporters the opportunity to subscribe to the bell and then had their names recorded in the records of the restoration. And pages and pages and pages of people, I must be several hundred people subscribed and have their name recorded as being supporters of it. We then came to cast the bell, and it's customary to inscribe bells. Well, the new treble is inscribed Cropredy Villagers gave me, because all the village was helpful in the restoration. And the second one, it was nice to honour the Fairporters and the band in the bell, and it was named Fairport Convention Festival Bell, and it's just become nicknamed the Festival Bell.
I think Ralph McTell's song that he wrote about the Battle of Cropredy Bridge, which Fairport frequently perform, not every year, but when they do, it's always amazing because you stand on the field where the battle actually happened.
One of the great compliments is that the band have used some of my songs in their set and they've stayed the distance, and I'm very proud of that.
I always find it very emotional, and I think a lot of other local people do, because it's all about that impact of the battle on the local people, and standing on that field, it gives you quite a tingle.
The Fairport Festival has always been a single stage. Now I have a band that I've been playing with for 25, 26 years now, called Spank the Monkey. And we obviously, at the time, three of us lived in the village. And there was 1 year, this is where I always struggle with the dates. I think 1995, the owners of the Red Lion at the time, because we frequented said establishment, said to us, you know, how do you fancy setting up and playing in the garden? Primarily, I think, as a way of trying to keep people to stay in the pub, get them to drink a few more beers. It's always all good. So we did this gig in the backyard of the Red Lion. You know, very, very agricultural. I think we might. I don't think we've had anything on the floor, but we might have even not had any kind of cover, you know. And it was a tiny little sort of 150 watt PA system or something, but it was incredibly well received. Went really, really well. And then obviously there was, yeah, let's do it again next year, which was fine. Now either the year after, it might have even been a 2-year gap. The owners of this establishment, the Brasenose, asked us, "Oh, we like that. Can you come and play here?" So we said, yeah. So we did that from we did the Red Lion on the Friday night and the Brasenose on the Saturday. In fact, I think the Brasenose we did on the Thursday night back then. Again, tiny little corner of the garden, you know, nothing like you see now, you know, the big stage and things. Tiny little part of the corner of the garden, absolutely brilliant. And then over the years, it started to grow momentum. Now we've done every year since '94, and then since then the Fringe built. So the Red Lion would have a band on. So instead of having just us on the Friday night, they'd have a band on the Saturday night, and then they'd have 2 bands on Saturday and 3 bands. So suddenly you've got a full programme of live music at one pub all weekend, full programme of music here the whole weekend. And then over the years, you've also got other venues have opened up. There's Field 8 down the road. There's another one, the Fringe. So now there's sort of 4 or 5 outlets, all free. Good quality music as well, and people can come around, move around the village. They can have their annual breakfast. They can at the village hall, and then they'll go and see Spank the Monkey at the Red Lion. Or Saturday, they will go and see whoever's at Duckworth's or something on Saturday night, who've done it the last few years. And it's their traditions. There's traditions. They'll come and see us. We've had people come and see us who've never seen us at the Brasenose because they always see it at the Red Lion. Because it's that day that we're here on the Saturday, they're elsewhere. So it's kind of cool. We did Thursday here. I think originally we played on Thursday night because obviously the festival was only 2 days. And then in 2000, they extended the festival to Thursday night as well. And the great thing about that is that we were the first band on at the festival on the Thursday night.
We had campers on Thursday. And it was actually a suggestion of my campsite crew who came up and said, all these people are, you know, they've got nothing to do. Why don't we put some music on for them? So the following year, we set up the stage a day early and started booking 3 days.
When I got involved, I looked at the 3-day ticket because you couldn't buy day tickets. I thought the 3-day ticket's the money ticket. That's where you should have your big draw. And then obviously you got Fairport on the Saturday. So that's what we did.
And by expanding it into people like Alice Cooper and Beach Boys and Jules Holland and all other people that have played here, it was a good move by Fairport because the folk scene isn't big enough to sustain a 22,000 capacity festival.
It kind of grew up with hopefully still the same vibe that it had when we started it, you know, a family-orientated event with music that the Fairport like, because we choose all the acts ourselves, and the criterion is we have to like the band. And the bands are so good that, you know, by the time it comes to tonight, you're going, Christ, we've got to follow that lot. You know what I mean? And we're kind of getting on. We're of an age, we don't have, in our repertoire, we don't have big jump about and, you know, jump up and down and boogie kind of music. We're much more kind of laid back and stuff. So sometimes it can be a bit disconcerting on stage when you remember what you've seen earlier on, you know.
Because I've been involved with it one way or another and live locally, you know, I'm a Banbury boy, so that's you know, this is my home area. I kind of guess I've always had quite a close relationship with the festival. I mean, obviously more out at the front listening than being on stage per se, but I guess when I joined the band, what was obviously changed was the responsibility I had at the festival in terms of the Saturday night set being as well as I can play it. You know, that's because for me, I have a great time at the festival. I love it, and I see lots of mates, and I hear some lovely music. You know, all weekend it's lovely music. But at the back of my mind, I never forget I'm heading toward that Saturday night set. It's a bit it's a difference between having to be somewhere at a certain time for an appointment or going for a drive.
When I saw Mary, her father said he was sailing across the deep blue for brighter new days in a...
The opening set is always, and then both, don't get me wrong, every minute up there for me is a joy. I love it. The opening set's lovely because it's just a welcome. It's a welcome. Everybody's got there. They've put the tent up, or they've got the van parked, or they've got there. For them, it's like whatever's in their lives, whatever going on in their lives that's probably not going so well, they can hopefully just leave that at the gates when they come in, and it's their time to just be free of it. And so we got the idea from the Levellers. I don't know if you knew that we got, because we played at the Beautiful Days Festival, which is like a great festival, and we thought, what a lovely idea that they go on as a little acoustic 20 minutes or whatever and say hello. So that's where it's come from.
When Christine, my ex, because Chris and I did all the stuff that Gareth does, and to be honest, she deserves so much more credit, because as this evolved, when we started doing this, there were no mobile phones, there was no internet, everything was done via the post, and Cropredy Post Office was where all our ticket sales went from. And it was an absolute nightmare, all the things that you had to do. And when we split up, the band, the organisation, there was never any doubt of Cropredy carrying on. It was just the way we'd do it, because Christine didn't want to be involved for obvious reasons. Not that we'd fallen out, we just were getting divorced, and she thought, I'm not working myself to death for my ex-husband, which is what she'd been doing before, basically, So Rob Ravener, who was our tour manager, and Simon and myself and Gareth, who'd worked with us in other capacities, is a great sound man, for example. And Gareth was working with the two brothers from Manchester, what they called? Oh yeah, that's it, yeah. What happened to them? No, just kidding. And he was doing the monitors for Oasis, and he thought that organising the festival would be easier than doing the monitors for Oasis. I tried to tell him it wouldn't be.
Nobody else could have done it. It's in safe hands. Nothing's changed much in the infrastructure. I mean, obviously, health and safety and risk assessments have all changed since then. But it's still, everybody feels it's the friendliest one in England, I think so.
We've become a sort of an odd family group. Everyone involved in it, who's been here for a few years, certainly. We treat each other as brothers and sisters. We help each other out.
It's got more and more difficult and more expensive to put on as the years go by, and the cost of putting it on is you would not believe how much it costs, because it's the infrastructure and building everything that's on this site, and having to do it in order to meet the health and safety issues and all that stuff. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare from what it used to be in the early days, when we'd have 2 plastic toilets and 2 barrels of beer. Everything's different now.
We're all getting older, and I would like to think we can all keep going a bit longer. But I having worked festivals all my life, I think the potential here is, even if the band just fade away, they get too old to do it and to tour, as we all will, the potential to carry it on in the same format is here. And as my legacy, I would love to see, when I'm long gone, hopefully I'll be upstairs, but you never know, I'd like to look down on my crew, the young ones who are coming in now, and go, you haven't put that in the right place, I wouldn't do that. So I would like to think, for the foreseeable future, there's great potential here.
When I began the hanky waving, which is the world's biggest Morris dance. I did it really for a laugh, and it became, what you say, an institution, and every year they expect it.
There's some people that haven't missed a year, and we get like 3 generations of people here. You know, there's people bring their nippers and then they've grown up and had their kids, and that's kind of wonderful. It means an awful lot to everybody. It means so much to the Fairports. It's the biggest thing that we do, and it's the thing we care most about, I suppose, because we know that people are coming from all over the world.
This wonderful celebration, I feel it's part of the fellowship, if you like, of what I call the folk pop music scene. And so coming here is a celebration in every sense for me, and I love it.
It's the high point of the year for me, personally, and I think it's the high point of the year for most people that live in Cropredy. Great opportunity to catch up with old friends, people you haven't seen for a year. Lots of people who have moved away from the area over the years. They all come back for Fairport weekend. They'll come and stay with their relatives, they'll come and hang out. You know, I have people stay at my house, I have caravans on the front lawn, and people camping in the back garden, and, you know, it's just brilliant. See old friends, it's a wonderful thing, and for me that is kind of, it kind of works really nicely with the festival as well, because the festival itself has got that as well, this idea that people come along, they see people they haven't seen for a whole year. And the band, Fairport themselves as well, have got, because they've got this massive extended family over the years, because the amount of people have either been influenced by them or have played with them over the years, they all get together at the same weekend as well. So I think you've got that reunion on the stage, you've got the reunion with the people of the village as well. It's great synergy, it's fabulous, really good.
It's got a fantastic family feel to it, and the band are great to us.
This is the only festival where children are welcome, and dogs. And I mean, people bring parrots, which is a bit silly, but it is the friendliest really family festival.
What's lovely now is the festival now still has the quality of friendliness and wholeness. That wholeness in terms of everybody being really part of the experience. You know, the one stage and the lovely situation for people to be in, that everybody feels connected. That's what I mean by the wholeness. And I think that's what's come through all the progression of the festival, in its expanded size and its maybe bigger bill commitment. It still has that whole feel.